Welcome back to Hustle Front. Buying a property is a long-term investment, and doing due diligence is a must, irrespective of who is selling the property. Whether it's a multinational selling or a small company selling, doing due diligence is a must. In the next few minutes, we'll be looking at 9 steps you can go through to make sure you acquire your property right. And again, with emergence of many takers in this country, people who just want to take your money away, con people, fraudulent people. So it is important you be careful when you're buying a property. So coming up. So step number 1 is understand what you're getting yourself into, or simply know the value of the property. Warren Buffett, an American seasoned investor, says that you're supposed to make money when you're going in. So when you're buying a property, you should have what he calls margin of safety. Make money, buy the property either at a lower price compared to the market price, or worst case, buy it at market price. So there are 3 ways you can identify the value of a property. Method number 1 is simply finding a valuer to do a valuation and give you an estimate of what that property is worth. Method number 2 is simply, finding a qualified real estate agent to advise you on what that property could be worth. And method number 3 is simply you go to the ground and try and do some research on the last sold. What was the price of the last sold property? You can do 2 or 3 properties and compare and come up with an estimate of what a property is worth in that location. Number 2 is confirm all relevant details about the property from the owner or his appointed agent. If an agent is appointed by the owner, he's supposed to provide proof. There's a letter we call authority to sell letter. He's supposed to, show it to you to prove that he has been appointed by the owner to represent him. So the best scenario is to meet with the owner, get the information from the horse's mouth. So for example, some of the things you're supposed to agree on at this point is what is the final price of the property. Negotiate, and agree on the final price. And again, maybe on the terms of payment. Before you start spending a single cent to do your due diligence, ensure you're selling on the same boat with the owner. Because you don't want to start a process and later start disagreeing when you have spent some of your funds to do due diligence. It will be a loss to you. Step number 3 is determine whether you can afford buying that property. By this I mean calculate all the expenditure you are likely to incur in buying that property or in acquiring that property. So some of the cost will be definitely, the major cost will be, buying price. What is the price that you're buying? Another cost that you're likely to incur is lawyers' fees. You'll require some money to transfer the property. You'll be paying some taxes, stamp duty taxes. Again, you may be paying the agent who helped you, identify the property. So all the costs that you're likely to incur in, acquiring that property, document them down and determine whether you have that money or, decide on how you're going to raise that money. Because the reason I'm advocating for this is that I've seen people start, buying a property, and then only to realize after paying some amount, only to realize that cannot afford. They do not have enough money to finish, to complete the process. So it is important you determine in advance before you start engaging that you have enough funds at your disposal to buy the property. So failure to complete the process due to lack of funds will cost you money. You'll be penalized heavily in some cases because of cancelling an agreement that you had signed. So be careful not to find yourself in such a scenario. Number 4 is simply do a search from the land registry. Various properties are designated to various land registries. So it is important that you find out which land registry that property belongs to. So a land search will provide you with a few things. 1, you'll get to know the real owner of the property. 2, you'll be able to identify whether that property has a charge. For example, if the owner took a loan from a bank or some other place, some other institution that gives loan, you'll be able to identify if it has been charged. It has been used as a security against a loan. So another thing that you're likely to identify from that search is a caveat or a restriction from a court of law. Let's say maybe there are angles, the families are fighting over the property. So somebody maybe have, put a restriction not to sell the property. So another information you're likely to get from a land search is simply the size of that piece of land. Is it an eighth an acre, half an acre, 1 acre? So that information you're likely to get it there. And some other information you'll be able to read from that form. You'll get more information about the property from that form. So again, if you're not satisfied with the land search, you can go further and do what we call green card search that will give you a history of the ownership of that property. It will simply help you get more information about the property. Normally, a normal search will cost you about 520 or so. And of course, the charges on the ground may be different depending on the appetite of the person helping you do the search. And you can use eCitizen to do a search. I've seen some counties have gone online. It's going for 500. I think Nairobi and then Kajiado, and you can check other counties also, adopting the same. So step number 5, before buying a property, check whether the rates are paid. There are land rates that are levied every year on that property. So check whether they have been cleared from the county offices. So if there are any pending rates, you can ask the owner to clear them before you buy the property, or simply, deduct them from the price that you're paying to him and pay them yourself. So it's up to you to agree with the owner on how to go about that. So step number 6 is identify the actual location of the property. Well, the owner of the property or the appointed agent may have shown you where the property is located, but in my opinion, you're not supposed to just trust them. So it is important to verify the location of the property. And the best way to go about this is a qualified surveyor to help you identify a property. Of course, it will cost you money, but as we said earlier, this is a long-term investment and it's a huge investment. You're talking about your savings, so you want to safeguard your savings to avoid loss. So they will show you the 4 corners of that piece of land that you're buying, what we call beacons. So they're supposed to help you identify the size of that property, and you compare that with whatever is written on the title deed. So the next step number 7, simply try and find out the history of the property. You may have seen in the news, there are some properties that are going through court battles. There are wrangles, family fights all over the place. So it is important to try and find out whether what you're buying is going through the same thing. So one of the ways to find out the history of the property is simply going to the ground, talk to the neighbors, talk to the people surrounding your property, and get to know more information about the property. Another way you can identify the history of a property is simply going to, local administration offices. The local chief or the sub-chief, they have a wealth of information about the area, and they're likely to share it with you if you ask them. So you'll get to know whether the property has wrangles or there are family issues over the property, there are family fights over the property. So you can get a lot of information about the property from those county offices. So use them wisely. So step number 8, find an advocate or a lawyer if you want to, draft an agreement, to put down in writing all you've agreed with the owners or the property. So the reason for this is simply to protect yourself, just in case disagreement or disputes, arise from the property or from the purchase. So it is important you find an advocate that you can trust to help you go through this. So the advocate is supposed to advise you on some other things that you're supposed to do to ensure the process is completed smoothly. Please do not try to save money or use shortcuts by skipping this step, because it can be very expensive not to have a well-drafted agreement to protect you from such occurrences. So remember, when you're drafting the agreement, it is advisable not to pay more than 10% until you get, consent to transfer the land from the land board. The reason I'm saying this, sometimes they get rejected. You do not want to put too much as a down payment, because if such a scenario was to occur, and imagine the owner had spent the money, how difficult it would be to get a refund. So step number 9 is simply ask for all relevant documents to do your transfer. But I do believe if you have engaged a very good advocate, a qualified advocate, he'll help you, collect all those documents. So some of the documents that you'll require to facilitate a transfer is original title deed, consent from the land board, and a copy of ID, copy of KRA PIN. Of course, you will need to pay the stamp duty. And if it's an individual selling and they're married, they're supposed to provide you with a spousal consent, allowing them to sell their property, and maybe passport photos. So any other document that is required, you can always ask your advocate or your lawyer to advise you on anything else that you need to do to facilitate the transfer. So if you verify that the property has been properly registered, that is not the end of it. So if you intend to keep the property for long, for example, for several years, it is important to have someone to be checking on it often to ensure you don't fall prey to what we call land grabbing. And again, you can fence your property to avoid encroachment by other people. And finally, if the transfer is done and you get your title, it is important to do a search immediately, and another one after a few months, 2 to 3 months, to verify whether the information is the same or whether the property has been registered properly. So for more details about the process, you can check my blog www.hustlefront.wordpress.com. You'll get to see how much a lawyer is supposed to charge you, how much surveyors charge, how much it will cost you to transfer, and how much it will cost you to do a search. So for that information, go to that blog and you'll be able to get more details about what you are talking about here. So if you complete the process successfully and everything is in order, you can simply go celebrate. You've just acquired a property. Go celebrate, go have fun. Thank yourself for saving money and investing. Thank you very much for watching. I wish you all the best in your property acquisition process. So please subscribe and hit the notification button so that you get to know when we have a new video in place. So all the best. See you next time.